Welcome back to Black Lotus Buds. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Michael. Thanks for joining us.
We're kicking off our 15th episode on the channel where we're talking all things trading cards. And today we'll be discussing the SECRET Grail, the blue and white guild in Magic the Gathering known as Azorius Senate, and card collection apps.
Well, Kevin, I hope you're strapped in for this one because I've got a whole new concept, something you didn't know you needed, you didn't even know you were searching for. And it's the SECRET Grail, man. Okay, so I was, doing some card research for our other topic about the card apps and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up getting distracted, and I was asking myself the question, what was the original trading card game? Like ever, right? And I'm thinking, like, my mind went to Egyptians. I don't know. They're just something about antiquity. And I started trying to find it. And I got to tell you, Google was not helpful in any way. And I think the answer to that, as best as we would ever be able to find, and I'm like, I kind of want to go out there and get, it would probably be a deck of cards, like playing cards. Now, if there is like an actual, like a Pokemon or a Magic the Gathering or, something like that was ancient, I wasn't able to, find it in a Google search within 10 minutes. But I did find there was like a National Geographic. It didn't really it wasn't playing cards. It was like 4 scraps that were decorative cards of some sort. I don't know if it was paper or like a paper, like, you know what I mean? Because they didn't have like printers.
Yeah.
Like a printing press. And I kind of want to go find one. Like they were talking about 13th and 15th century, you saw decks of cards like for poker, but it was sketch. That was what criminals did. Drinkers and gamblers, the worst of the worst back then,
Right.
Like, yeah, but I kind of want, like, in my PSA collection, like, how crazy would it be when I'm like, so just for reference, it's like a long box that you can slide your slabs into, and it spaces them and stuff. Just imagine if I'm like, yo, bro, here's my PSA 10. This is one of the original Pokemon, and here's this PSA 10. This was one of the first, it was like the alpha card for Magic the Gathering, one of those samples. And then I'm just like, oh, and this one? And it's like some, like, 4,000-year-old, like, scribblings on a rock with, like, a battle power represented on it.
There's like a stone.
Yeah, I literally saw a stone. It was on a Facebook post earlier. It was, like, I guess, labeled as the first known complaint. And it was like this translation from an old stone. And it was basically him being like, the copper that I ordered isn't the high grade that I purchased. It's like a lower quality. And it was like labeled as the first known complaint. Like the first, I guess, Karen response or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't. It was just a complaint. That's their referencing. But that it helped kind of drive me down this path. And I want to kind of collect some old playing cards. I don't know if there's a market. I just think it would be, dude, it's got to be part of my collection. If I could get it I could afford it. You know what I mean? Because I obviously can't go to the Smithsonian and be like, I'm an avid Pokemon collector. What do you think about letting one of those 4 priceless pieces go?
Yeah, 13th century little artifacts leave the case here. What a interesting concept. I mean, yeah, you got to think people were playing games. They were definitely playing like board-like games back in the day. So what type of, card collecting? Because you're right. I mean, if they didn't have printers, what's the next thing to pair with like card trading and collecting jewels, gems? Like that's like just jewelry nowadays. Would that be considered that?
Yeah, I mean, if I was rich enough, I would totally be collecting jewels. This is Pokemon and Magic are just the poor man's jewels, really. Well, I imagine it's a lot of carvings, like probably rock, like they didn't really have a lot of flat paper trading cards. Maybe that's what will make, like, getting a poker, an old poker card exciting, because that is as close as we could get. But I'm sure they carved, like, creatures into wood or rock, and paint like cave paintings and things. And I know they had dice too, like little lopsided
Yep.
rocks they would roll.
Yeah. That's really interesting you brought this up. A while ago, I looked up the oldest trading cards and tried to figure out when trading cards even began as a thing. And it seemed to be more recently where it was technically just like business cards that people were handing out. And then they started to just turn into an antique collectible item. And from there, I don't know at what point people saw this as a way to intertwine a game into this collectible card collecting nature. But sure enough, I guess Magic definitely was the ones that stand out as far as building this immense library and now support system with everybody involved.
Well, I went through that same journey originally trying to find, when I was doing my YouTube channel, I wanted what was the original card, and I mean, I basically found Magic. That's what made me start including Magic in things I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you called me when we first started talking again, and it's I don't know if I chose Magic because I wanted something hyper relevant. You know what I mean? It's already popular. It's got fans. It's got value. It's big already. So that was basically as early as it got. But I'm sure, and there's probably a collectible market for it. Vintage, I don't even know. Vintage card. I know it'd be poker cards, I'm sure. It's interesting. Do you think you said business cards, man. Maybe that is. Some dude's got a PSA 10, it's the first, Gutenberg's card,
Yeah, I think they were used as advertising back then. So maybe I'm
almost like a flyer.
Yeah, with a cigarette box. I think cigarettes had ads on them and stuff back in the day, and I'm sure there's all
cereal.
sorts of.
You would open up cereal boxes and you would get this little stamp card. But baseball I think did it before Magic. I think there were baseball cards, so sports cards.
You know what? We always overlook sports cards, but you're right. There is so much with sports, and there are cards from I think the 40s or something. I know there's.
Yeah, I forget that. But I mean, looking for the Secret Grail, it's I doubt. I don't fantasize that these cavemen were scoring their sport. You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
maybe almost like a flower book. People would take. It's not really a card though. They would take flowers and mush them in books, and they would dry out.
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna keep researching. I want a Secret Grail. It would be ideal to just find some really the oldest thing I can that I can call a trading card and just get it graded myself.
Gosh, how sick would that be?
You can do that.
That would be so funny if PSA is they're we really have no idea how to grade this. It looks like it's totally shredded, and they're this is a perfect 10. This is the only thing.
Because you can do, it's I've seen error cards, and they give them their own identification. This is a special card, kind of the
cool.
Well, I guess that was a mock. I was thinking of the Cheeto, but I guess that was not a real. It's not a real grading.
Yeah.
But I bet you could authenticate that and put it give them the post, and they would be this is the Cheeto from this guy. It just wouldn't inherently make it more valuable. It's it's just kind of a cute thing.
I like it. I think. I would love to if you find something, let me know. I'm curious to see if.
Oh, you'll be the first. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to. I almost want to make it a mission to get it without. I don't want to buy it. I'm not in the position to just be buying antiquities. But it would be sweet to find it and get it graded, and then, dude, it's hype. It's a hype item. I'm excited at the concept of it. It also kind of brings a little bit of extra fun to collecting. Everybody should have a Secret Grail.
Yeah.
They should have one. You're you pull out, this is the oldest thing I could find. And we all have our own Secret Grail. And whoever has the oldest wins.
I've got
You
to
like
find.
pull out a tag from a sock or something.
There's got to be an extra income source now, so I can start putting together a reserve of money just in case, this trove or this like treasure shows up. I wonder if even all these not antique shops, but pawn shops. I would think they might have a source to go to, or if you're looking for something like that, this is where you might find it.
I'm thinking it's more of like just like the old. Sorry, I'm laughing because it's ridiculous. I'm like, if the oldest thing I can find that is generally in the shape of a card, like a rectangle, and flat. Like if I can find a tag from like 1912, it's like that just is it. I'm putting it in a thing. But I guess it has to have some inherent collectability too. So I guess but I mean, if you present me with a PSA 4, first mattress tag, I mean, I feel like at that point you could trade it. Like if you trade it to me now, it's a tradable collection.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look for one. I'll find it.
It might be difficult to find an audience who's collecting mattress tags, but you never know.
But you got to get on the floor level. Like you got to be in there before they're expensive, or you'll never get them.
Well,
we gotta create this brand, man. Like we gotta start this trend.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Just like I said, keep me in the loop if anything comes up. But for now, it is time for this or that. With both cards in hand, which would you play? So, Michael, tonight, this is Winter Orb. And I've asked you to pull that up so you can take a look. It's a two colorless mana artifact featuring a floating orb near an icy cliff. And it reads, as long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than one land during their untap steps. That tonight is Soul Ring, which is another two colorless mana artifact featuring a ring that harnesses the light of foreign suns and has the ability tap to add two colorless mana to your mana pool. So, with both in hand, Michael, which do you play? Give it whatever context you want.
All right, I have a quick question. What does it mean if an ability is played as an interrupt?
It just means you can tap that as an instant. So at any time you could play an instant card, it's the same as being able to just, with that on the battlefield, just tap it and now utilize the 2 mana that it gives you.
Well, in the artifact, it stays out there.
Correct. You would keep this.
Okay.
So yeah, every turn you think it'll get untapped and you'll be able to utilize that mana if you need it.
I mean, I feel like Winter Orb. Well, this is complicated. This is tough. This is a tougher one than usual, I feel like.
Yeah, and give it whatever context you want. I want to hear your thought.
So to try to articulate what I'm going through, I'm trying to think of how valuable. I mean, 2 mana, you're getting it every turn, right? Like you just have an extra 2 mana in perpetuity.
Yep.
But that might or might not be necessary for your. I can't imagine the strategy where you need that in perpetuity. I guess it's 2 turns ahead as far as land placement, so that's one way to think about it. So that's probably how I'll try to think about it. And then this other one, Winter Orb, this is. They can't untap more than 1 land during their untap steps. Oh, so wait, that means your opponent, like when they would normally go to untap all their lands, they can only do 1?
As well as you, correct.
Oh, as well as me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm still going, and the context I'm giving this in my head is after, watching you play a little bit on Arena, I'm thinking in terms of a deck's strategy overall. So I know that, if you're playing this card, Winter Orb, I know you have a deck where you might not need to untap your lands, or you might have something tricky where that's benefiting you. And I I would want to play Winter Orb because it's going to be in my plan for that to happen, but not my opponent's. So whereas the 2 mana is, yes, it's a perk, it's like, I feel like messing up your opponent's strategy while it's helping yours or aiding yours or fitting in yours is the more valuable. So for today, I'm choosing this Winter Orb.
I love your explanation, and with your explanation, I will agree. The reason is that Winter Orb really can, to your point, totally screw up their strategy. And yes, it may prevent you from putting lands down, but if you've already got all the creatures you need and can continuously deal more and more damage, you're going to then bet on them not really being able to utilize 1 mana untapped, and then, of course, they can play a land out of their hand, and they would have 2 to utilize. But if you have Soul Ring on your end, then that's an artifact that will get untapped, and you can use that as your mana. So, that would be a way where Winter Orb would be amazing if you also have Soul Ring on the battlefield. But Winter Orb for that late game strategy, screwing up your opponent, that is the card to play. So,
you know what? I didn't even consider that, dude. That I would have Soul Ring, because it's both. They're both in my hand, so I don't even need to worry. Like, this is the strategy: is you have Soul Ring, and you get extra mana.
You have both, yeah. But cool, because we don't talk about artifacts a lot. But while we're on the topic of while we're on the topic of Magic, we'll jump right into the next guild. So we've been discussing all sorts of fun colors in Magic, and tonight we'll be discussing Azorius Senate, which is the blue-white guild in Magic. I define this as it's the guild where control and defense largely contribute to the order that expects, I would say it contributes to the, let me back this up. Control and defense largely contribute to the order they expect to use to their advantage to lock down their opponent. So what I'm really getting at is that the blue and the white are both going to help you prevent attackers, prevent blockers, prevent abilities from triggering. There's a big, well-known mechanic that's very a staple of Azorius called Detain, which is everything I just mentioned with preventing attackers and blockers and that stuff. There's also like forecasting. Investigate, I think you might be able to throw into this, which is the one that you love so much, where you're just drawing you're drawing for clues and silly stuff. Another more popular one was Addendum. Casting spells during your main phase is going to do more for you than casting it during any other part of your turn, such as in the middle of combat. And then there's always...
way I think about blue and white from, I think, just playing or watching you play Arena is like, it's a, like, if I had white and blue, I'm trying to play kind of a long game, setting up. I mean, like, with blue being kind of like tricky. That's how I imagine it.
You're absolutely correct, because there's evasive and disruptive creatures in a blue and white deck. You saw me using a human soldier deck, so there was flying creatures, there were counter spells, there was a little bit of trickery going on, there was protecting all of my creatures, and even myself at one point, so they couldn't target me. And that's exactly the opposite of red, where red is acting on those quick impulses, very little thought, just drill your opponent as fast as possible. The white and blue combo allows you to be a little bit more methodical, have a little bit more structure. The lore of this deck is all about like the judges and the order. There's rules involved, and like creatures you're gonna find are like enforcers, mages, clerics, nobles. There's even like a totally separate one with spirits, which is like incredibly big with Azorius. There's just like a deck called Azorius Spirits, and you can just make a deck nothing but spirits, which is pretty sick. But a commander that's common with this style of a deck is one that I asked you to look up called Isperia Supreme Judge. And this is a pretty costly card, I think, for a commander. Anytime you're dealing with a commander that's 6 mana, you would either have to have, some mana like the Soul Ring on the battlefield that'll allow you to play this quicker, or something else. Asperia is a flying creature, and it reads, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you may draw a card. So helpful in the sense of getting a lot more of your deck out in your hand and trying to play whatever you can from it. It definitely pushes your opponent away from wanting to attack you with everything that they have, because if they attack with 10 1/1 creatures, they're just giving you 10 cards. So I haven't played this in Commander, so I can't speak too much on the Commander aspect of this deck style, but you saw that white and blue human soldier deck that I had, and that's one of my favorites. And I love this strategy.
I was literally just about to say, like, because I'm staring at this card as soon as, because I have it pulled up here, and it's like, I'm looking at this, and it just seems lackluster. Now, it is flying, which I guess is OP on its own. Like, I feel like flying is straight up, like, I've seen it used now, I feel like it's unfair, which I guess is the point. You're trying to create an unfair thing to win the game, and that's what the fun is. But it's like, watching you, because you are using these cards to do big things. So it's like, now that I've seen that in action, the card itself, it looks bad and compared to how it actually acts in unison of a strategy. Because you had similar stuff, and I ran into this, I think, well, maybe, I don't know, I guess I watched you play, but it was like the flying creatures at the end were what did the damage. It was like everything else was all just part of, like, the linemen, the offensive line, ran up against each other, and then you had these last flying creatures, and, looking at it, you're like, okay, flying, 6 damage, draw a card, but, like, watching you in a strategy where drawing a card adds life, hurts your opponent's life, and now you have it in this infinite loop, it's like, I don't know what I'm looking at anymore. When I look at this card, I'm like, this can't be that good. But I know from watching you that, like, this can be a killer.
Yeah, this card is a little bit more defensive as like a commander, just because that the ability of it, other than the flying, it's 6/4. I mean, to your point, flying, that's a pretty strong flying creature. Anytime you have a flying creature out there, it's going to cost a lot of mana to see the power of it. So 6 in this case. To see anything more than like 3, that card is going to be pretty costly. So this is very much just defensive.
That one that you had, I think, was a legendary. Like, because this is supposed to be like the epic. You know what I mean, right? Like, you can only have one of these out on the field at a time.
Oh,
what was the black one you were using? Do you remember?
Yeah, you saw me with a game-winning card. I'll have to pull that one up, and I'll answer you in a moment here. But yeah, that's a totally fun strategy with just trying to fool your opponent if they don't notice that card's on the battlefield, then they have no chance. But yeah, this deck style is that slower play, and it definitely it definitely works out in mid range, like an earlier type deck. If you can get a lot of 2 mana, 3 mana cards out there that are powerful flying creatures. Harbin is my favorite one because he's a game winner. He's only 2 mana. It's a 3/2 creature with flying. And whenever you attack with at least 5 soldiers, all of your creatures gain flying and gain +1/+1. So if your opponent has nothing to block with, I mean, that's as far as flying goes, like, it's game over. It is game
deadly
over.
As can be.
Yeah, you just have to get like a couple ones out there, 1/1 creatures, and then if you have 5 1/1, let's just call it 5 1/1 soldiers attacking, they all get flying and +1/+1. That's 10 damage that in most cases would be unblockable.
Now, this is going to sound a little sacrilegious, but I actually think that this kind of makes the powerhouses, like the big baller cards in Magic, kind of better than the cards in Pokemon. Now, Magic I don't think will ever, fill my heart in the way Pokemon has. But in a competitive sense, dude, the cool cards in Pokemon made me not want to play because it was kind of like, the first turn it was over. And everything I've seen so far in Magic has been different metas, that some have build up and some, you know what I mean? In Pokemon, it was like, who can draw this strong card first, and that it just became that for me. And that might have just been like one league or one season, or you know what I mean. But that's the impression it left with me. And I enjoyed TCG Pocket because it was a little different format. But Magic, I'm sure I will feel the same way when someone draws a card and just one-shots me. But it's not like that's the only meta. You know what I mean? There's all these different decks and varieties.
And
I'm getting hype, I guess.
Yeah, and you're looking at it from the standpoint of standard, which is like what I play in, what all my friends play in, and what I recommend. Because if you get into the other formats where you would be able to play with cards from 20 years ago, then you're absolutely going to be seeing those cards that are like in one turn, just like game winner after game winner after game winner card. There's nothing you can do. So it is a lot more fun in that regard to be focused on standard play and then be playing with cards from the last 3 years or so that you could have pulled from a pack, on Arena or in real life, and have a strategy built on that card and it be fair because you're not just filling it with timeless game winners, like the Vein Ripper card, which is one you just talked about. That was the black flying creature that I threw out there for 6 mana. Sacrifice a creature is its ward cost, but the cool ability of it is whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And my opponent just did not see that. They wouldn't have been able to prevent that. They had to block the creatures I was attacking with, and that's how they end up losing. And that's
maybe
the fun.
You know what it is? It's because I saw you play with that even you reading that, I think of like, that's a powerful card. So I need to see more like the blue card. Because I look at this one and I'm like, is this even a legendary creature?
Yeah.
It's probably like the best card in the game. And I'm like, this is trash.
Well, best cards in the game brings up our next segment. And we are talking about time-tested trades, where we discuss historic and iconic trading cards. Tonight, we're discussing, I think, one of the OGs. It's got to be Charizard. From the original set of Pokemon, arguably known for its collectability from the absolute beginning of Pokemon. And, I think it's one of these cards that is a time-tested trade. We had talked about this off air. The top 3 collectible ones, I think we could call them in the first base set: Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur. You mentioned Pikachu, which I didn't even think. But you're right. I mean, that is such a iconic card from Pokemon. How could you skip over that if you're talking about, the cards that everybody knows? And I just think that the price of Charizard nowadays is so absurd. So now you've taught me that there's the difference between damaged and heavily played. Michael, let me ask you, heavily played Charizard, ungraded, just raw, what's the lowest price for a heavily played Charizard? Base set, not first edition, just base set. Hollow.
I would say, because I have one that was damaged, and I'm kind of imagining it like that, but I would say like $250 to like $300. Base set Charizard.
160 is the number I found online, so you're pretty much spot on. I'm sure that varies and goes up and down, periodically. But let's talk about it from the other perspective. PSA 10, same card. What do you think the average price of a PSA 10 Charizard base set foil card is?
I mean, I would probably say, I would say like $35K. But it's hard because there are weird nuances with, like, it can be first edition or it can be, unlimited. But I mean, I'd say like $30K.
The last sale that I found was, I think it was 11,000 and some change. The average price, which I don't know how they've compiled this average, but I was taking this straight from PSA's website. The average price that they had as of today was $9,686.44. So just under $10,000 for a PSA 10. And
you know what's insane? It's like I feel like that price is low.
Yeah.
But then it's like I take a step back, and we're talking about spending $11K on a piece of cardboard. But like somehow I'm like, that's a little low for an original Charizard.
Well, I love when I was looking into this a little bit more, and like just thinking about the nostalgia of Charizard. You know, you gotta think like in the context of us all when we first got into Pokemon and we were ripping open these packs with the chance of actually pulling a Charizard. Anybody who pulled a Charizard, it was a kid more than likely, and they might not have been thinking about the collectability of it being a PSA 10. So in my mind, I think that the chances of there still being a bunch of PSA 10 Charizards out there is really low, but I also didn't look up the number to see how many actually have been graded. I just got to think like everybody who ripped open a pack with a Charizard back in the day would have just kept it and played with it, and not left it as a 10. If they ultimately said, you know what, let me actually try to grade this card. But I mean, who doesn't love a fire-breathing dragon, right? I mean, I'll have to test your knowledge with this though. Except Ash, right? Didn't he and Charizard not get along at one point? Charizard thought Ash was too weak to control him, and he just stopped listening to Ash.
Yeah, he basically lived for the fight. So, like, Ash, he wouldn't really respect Ash or listen to him, but Ash would still win with him because if presented with a worthy opponent, Charizard would just try to kill it, basically.
Oh,
like, there was a fight between Magmar and Charizard in a volcano for one of his badges. And even though Charizard, I don't remember, but I don't think he respected him, he still fought Magmar because it was his moment to prove he was the bomb.
Well, he pretty much is, right? I mean, Charizard he's like the strong guy. And when you're looking at the card, he says right there he deals 100 damage. That's his move. I don't know of any other Pokemon from that base set that had triple-digit damage on the card. Everybody loves something like that. Nowadays, think about what's coming out on April 11th here with Magic. The Tarkir Dragonstorm set is about to drop, and it's got a bunch of rave reviews. I'm excited to look into the card set and see if there might be, some fun dragons hidden in there. But even Cheetozard, gosh, I mean, we were just talking about that. And, 88,000 total sale. So with that, Michael, let's just wrap this up. I got to ask you, will Charizard last the test of time? Is it a time-tested trade?
Oh, 100%. And, honestly, it's just, you mentioned the new Magic the Gathering, the dragons coming. It's like, that has me hype because dragons have been cool forever. There was a meme where, I think it's a Family Guy meme, Peter Griffin's walking by, they're all horses, one of them has sunglasses. And he passes him by, and then he turns back and he's like, I don't know what it is, but you're one cool guy. And it's like, that is Charizard. Every time. That was the meme. It had like Charizard written above the horse. But, it's just going to be... that's a card... Think about beyond the nostalgia for Pokemon. What's going to be cooler? The real icon of the franchise, Pikachu, or when Pokemon's dead and Charizard is just... They're like looking at it like you and I were talking about ancient Egyptians and poker cards, and they're like, well, this one is a fire-breathing dragon. Like, they're going to think it's cool still. Forever, it will last the test of time.
There you go. Nice.
100%. Not biased at all.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, they've made so many damn Charizards. It's like, gosh, have they ever made that many renditions of any other card out there?
Probably, but it's probably Pikachu
or
one of the other starters.
I say that, I
was
always forget
thinking
Pikachu, man.
When you were telling, you were talking in the time test of trades, I didn't want to interrupt, but I was thinking back, because you were talking about kids ripping cards up and then, not really treating them right, and I just have to share, man, I opened a Charizard after I had quote-unquote grew out of Pokemon, and it had to be, I was a kid still. So it's just, I wasn't the new hot thing. I was into whatever, Furby or whatever we had back then. And
Tamagotchis.
It's like, I pulled a
Gigapets.
Charizard.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
My
that
gosh.
stuff. And it was a different set, and I literally laughed. I was like, gosh, like, I can't believe I couldn't pull this back then. You know how much this was worth? And it's worth way more now.
Oh
And it's
man.
like, I just like tossed it. I have it somewhere. It's in one of these binders, but it's all beat up because I still didn't I didn't respect it.
Yeah.
Like I should have, but now I will. Any Charizard I get from here on out, man, I'll treat it as best
He
I
deserves the
can.
respect. Yeah, you got to bow down to
It
him.
does.
Yeah.
I've learned how to be a better collector. And that brings me to a topic I wanted, well, I teased it last episode, and that was card collecting apps. I don't have any, never used them, but I wanted to research them. So what I did, just to be transparent, I started Googling. I got a list. I think I got 2 lists, one off of like Reddit and one off of YouTube. And then I wrote them down and investigated. So from top to bottom and how they were listed to me, and I looked them up, I had Collector. So that's on Google and Apple. It does Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, all sorts of stuff. I pulled up like the website for each one of these. I looked at their website too. I looked at like some comments of like just randos. I'm like trying to get a taste of every opinion, right? So I have all of it. And it seemed to be really good. You can sort your cards. You can add sealed product. And then I started moving on to the other ones. Collex, it's Collx. That one's like sports cards. Every time someone brought this one up, it was like a sports card YouTuber. They didn't have any Pokemon, no Magic, none of that. The next was Card Base, which it was all sports card again, but they also had Pokemon, but no Magic. And then there was a Poke TCG, which I was happy. I was like, this is going to be it. Like, this has got to be great. Dude, this was like the worst one. It said it was from Dragon Shield, which are the card sleeves I buy, and people use them for decks and stuff to protect them. So I thought it was about to be hype, but there was a off-putting cookie agreement that like covered half the screen. The website was working really janky. Images weren't loading. I spent a few minutes on here and I was like, this ain't it. And the last was Price Charting, which seems to be, I think, more of a website. But you can add a collection, but by far, returning back to where we started, the first one I looked up was called Collector. Collectr. And the website looks smooth. Everything seemed to be working well. You can add whole products that are sealed. There's Google, there's Apple. It has sorcery, dude. I couldn't believe sorcery.
Whoa.
You could add sorcery in here. Yeah. And I think there was a marketplace people were commenting about. According to the video I watched, which I think was a little dated, some of this stuff was older, like a year to 2 years. So there could have been updates on some of these. But Collector, as I've seen it, has everything. Has all the cards. You can put in your prices. Apparently, at one point, the mobile app was the only way to add what you purchased your card at. So there was a limitation for the website, I guess. I'm bringing that up as a flaw. But I'm going to try Collector out. I want to put all my stuff in there. And I think I'm just going to do rare stuff, like my hollows or, like have my one box of goodies. That's going to be in there.
Yeah.
But sorry, I can't. I had this whole thing. I looked all this stuff up. Which have you used? Because you've used one in the past. I just don't know which.
Yes. And, at the end of the last episode, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do my homework and look into it. But, I mean, the homework has already been done. I have only used the one, and it is Collector. And I love it.
Nice.
I started inputting, like, the more expensive cards that I thought would be pricey, and, like, rares, mythics, and magic. And I really only have a magic collection, so after I did that, then I started adding the uncommons, the commons. I didn't put it lands, but there are some lands that are worth a lot of money. I just pulled one that was worth like over $20. So there are ones that are actually worth some change. And then I realized, well, shoot, I might as well go through all the decks that I've built. I have 10 of them organized and used as like a battle box where they're relatively even, all different colors, and you can just kind of randomly pick out a deck and be able to play against one of the other decks. And with that, when I input that into this collector database, I had a pretty good understanding of my overall collection in Magic. And I'm not going to throw out the cost of what it is, but I input 1,300 cards into there. And what's hilarious, to me at least, is that my good friend gave me a card recently and was like, I pulled this. I already had one, and I know how cool it is. I want you to have it, mainly for its playability, but it is an alternate art foil card, and it's my most expensive card. So I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, wow, I didn't even pull the most expensive card that I own right now.
And I do want to say, I know you, like, obviously you know this, but to anybody listening, we're not sponsored by anybody either. Like, this is just our genuine, like, us exploring our hobby.
Oh yeah.
Do you know of any other? Because I just kind of found these two lists and I went through them. The sports cards I eliminated, the Pokemon I didn't like, and price charting I stopped exploring too because it just everyone looked inferior to collector for what I would want to do. Like, I want sorcery and Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm specific.
I've used the Collects one, COLLX, for the baseball collection of cards that I think it was baseball and basketball, and ended up putting all the cards that I had just to see what the total value was and if there was anything worth anything. And there were 3 cards worth over $20. One was a $100 Michael Jordan card, which I ended up just putting into a sleeve, putting into a little frame, and just putting on the wall.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it just kind of fits with one of like the little sports area that I use. But
tell me, because I'm sure anybody listening and not having a collecting app is interested. Because I want to know, just am I gonna like this, or is it gonna be? I'm undecided if it's gonna be a pain in the butt, or I'm gonna like and enjoy the process. How did you feel about it? Like, did you feel like it was a chore, or were you just happily putting them in? Or I feel sometimes overwhelmed with the thought of doing stuff like this.
I have to say, while I was inputting my cards over maybe like a 2 or 3 week period, they updated it, and when they updated it, it made it a million times better. I think they had the feature to only search Magic at, or only Pokemon or only sorcery, because it was searching everything. And these Magic cards, if I wasn't typing the full name exactly as it's typed, it was pulling all sorts of cards from Pokemon and all these other, trading card sets. And it was auto-correcting the name. I think they've removed the auto-correct feature, which was a blessing, because then, you're, in Magic, come on, and in Pokemon too, every name is something that is not a real name, so it's the autocorrect feature on an app like this is not smart. And on top of that, it tracks the current price of the cards that you input in there. You can select foil or non-foil. It's going to auto select non-foil if you just find the card and click on it and say, yeah, I have one. You can adjust to let the app know how many you have if you have multiple of the same card, including like if you have one rare and if I have like one foil and one non-foil, you can put both of them in there and it'll like mark them separately. And then it'll track the prices.
I'm imagining you're like typing, you're like, I have 2 Charizard, and it's like, you have 2 charcoals. And you're like, no.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah, you just keep like, no, you gotta, and that was happening like every single time. So that was a little frustrating, but they got past that. And I'm looking at it right now, and it says in the last 6 months, my collection has gone up $210. So it tells me like the current live price for my entire collection, which is not something that I necessarily need to know, but it's kind of cool to follow along. And it's cool to click on your portfolio, see, it organizes them in the highest price to the lowest price. So I used that to then pull out my top 3 or 5 top cards, brought them to a card store, and I was able to trade one for a fair price to them, and then got some in-store credit, and then used it that day to get some cards from the store. So it was a fun way of just kind of introducing my cards back into the world and getting some new cards out of it. And I think that's a really cool point to think about.
Yeah, dude. You just gave me an idea that I could go. I'm trying not to judge. I don't really love the experiences I've had at my local card shop, and I keep trying to give them a chance. But I wonder if I could sell cards. They do have a display. That might be something I can try out and get a good experience with. But I don't want to drift too far. I want to get to our next segment, which is where, what, or why.
Ooh. Well, let's go with what?
The what is... Actually, sorry. Hold on. JK.
Did I fool you?
The wrong thing
Like, wait a second.
You did, man. You got it. Dude, you won 10 points for Gryffindor.
Yes! The Sorting Hat.
Okay.
Be proud.
I'm sorry. Let's rewind. What did you choose?
I chose what?
The what is new Pokemon products.
Whoa. Okay, well, let's go with the where.
The where is the source, where dreams begin and some dreams die. And that also leaves us with the last. The why is for gold. And I know I'm trying to make this quizzical as best I can, and we're talking about Pokemon products where the where is where Pokemon is sold, and we're talking Target, Costco, even Pokemon.com. And the for gold is the greed, man. I'm talking about all these scalpers, and it's like it's just, we've talked about this before, but it is escalating. They're releasing sets on Pokemon.com. They're selling out instantly. Like, before you can load the page, the first time you see the page, it says sold out. And they're coming up with new sets. It's like, it's removed the enjoyment of my own hobby because I can't open packs. I can't share packs with others. I can't do the stuff I used to do. I don't want to see these new products only on YouTube. I want to enjoy them myself. And it's getting pretty much ruined. So Kevin, how does this make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel too good. I did look up an article today about this exact point with this, and the Pokemon Company did release an official statement confirming they will continue to reprint recent sets and increase the stock of forthcoming sets. I don't know how that's going to play into the scalper side of things, so it doesn't make me feel too strongly about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm feeling similar to you. I'm like, they're just gonna basically put new product up, but it's gonna sell out they're gonna really have to print, because the scalpers are just stocking up. I mean, this is a whole, it's
an industry
now.
Yeah,
it is. It's its whole thing. So for our segment, this is the where, what, when, and wow. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a pool of tears from these children that can't get those cards, and a 10 being, Ash winning.
I'm a scalper. The grand reveal.
How would you? Wow, that would be rough if you revealed that you're the. I am now the scalper. But 1 to 10, what do you rate it, man? Let's do 1 being a pool of children's tears and 10 being a critical hit to win against the Elite Four. I like that better.
It's right there near a 1. I'm going with a 2. It's not the worst case, but a 2.
Right. I guess children, they didn't die, but they are pretty sad. Well, you heard it here, folks. Kevin says it's a 2. So I'm gonna give it a wow.
Wow. Very somber. Yeah, I mean, it's like. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It just had me thinking about another article I read today where right near you, somewhere in Virginia, I think it was Fairfax, some person dressed up in a Spider-Man costume and stole about $10,000 worth of cards and Pokemon slabs of graded cards. I believe they were caught, and hopefully the items were returned. But I'm like, gosh, man, people will do anything for these cards nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah, I did forget. I wanted to add a call to action. And I've been flipping through pages like you used to do, Kevin. And so I do want to say my call to action for this, dude, don't let this stuff bring you down. I already thought about this. Like, I'm going to just not buy Pokemon products that are 4 times as expensive that I can't afford to do that with. Instead, I'm just going to wait it out. I'll try to buy other products. I think if you were, you had a kid, I saw a dad he would buy singles. He would make packs for his kid, and he would cater them to deck battles they were having. So he was able to give his kid the experience of opening packs, even though they couldn't get any. And I'm just saying, if it means you're not going to buy Pokemon now, maybe you could save up and, buy a PSA card or enjoy the hobby in a different way. Just don't let it bring you down, and make sure, that you take something bad from this hobby, turn it into something good, because we have the power to do that. I also want to say, before we wrap things up, that next podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit about how Collector went. I'm going to go in there as a brand new collector. I don't know that I'm going to put my whole collection in. I'm just going to explore it, and that'll be a talking point. If you are interested in Collector and you're not sure if that's something you should be into, I'm going to tell you how it went and give you hints to whether you might like it even more than in more detail than we did before.
Awesome. Well, that makes me excited. And if we could end on a happy note, there was a kid who recently pulled out a baseball card out of a pack that was like a 1-of-1 ultra rare Paul Skeens, I think his name is. It's like a rookie patch card that had his signature on it and ended up selling for over $1 million at auction. And this young, I think the kid was 11 years old, he's the one who found it. So it's really neat how somebody that young is now, I hope, hooked, and is definitely going to keep promoting trading cards with everybody else. Because, that's how you pull out a victory in the sets, that when you're ripping packs, we're all trying to find something that's collectible, and if you can pull out something that's that exciting and rare and sell it and make some money, what a win.
It's a big W.
Yeah, what a win. Cool. Well, Michael, bring us home, man. Send us off.
Well, I look forward to telling you all about Collector next week. I enjoyed it, as I always do, and I hope everybody else did as well.
Well, I sure did too. And like that, everybody, we appreciate you listening. Thanks for joining us. And like always, we will catch you all next time.